This is Leaders Who Scale, and I'm Jeff Siegel. I've worked with thousands of companies over the years, and I'm fascinated by seeing how many of them grow and scale. Join me as we learn from the leaders of growing companies and share that knowledge. Leaders Who Scale is sponsored by Siegel Solutions, providing world-class accounting, advisory, and QuickBooks and Acumatica Cloud ERP services. Today's guest is a seasoned entrepreneur with almost 3 decades focusing on startups. He's been featured in Entrepreneur Magazine. After a few years of planning, he started his current company in 2019. He's grown to over 60 employees and growing, employees, I should say, and contractors. He is the CEO and founder of National Adhesive. I want to welcome Dean Van Sale. How you doing, Dean?
Thanks, Jeff. Good. Appreciate being here today.
Good. I'm glad you're doing this today with us, and looking forward to hearing about challenges and successes and all the good things that happen with growing and scaling a company. But before I jump into it, if you can give us kind of a quick synopsis of what National Adhesive is, what it does.
Sure, not a problem. So National Adhesive, we import from a variety of manufacturers internationally, everywhere from Turkey, South Africa, China, Taiwan, Thailand, and we bring in adhesives and sealants and tapes. We've got 3 of our own brands. One is a derivative of a brand that was started back in South Africa almost 30 years ago. And then we've got 3 licensing agreements with DuPont. We're introducing a new range of Grey Stuff products, corks and sealants, which have been launched already into some of the big box retailers. And later this year, we'll be introducing adhesives and tapes under the same brand.
Do you actually manufacture any of these, or you purely have license agreements and you're a distributor?
So we are responsible from everything from getting the product manufactured. So while we don't manufacture ourselves, we're responsible for the quality control. We go through quite a rigorous stewardship process with DuPont. And we bring the product to market, we sell it, we distribute it. We manage the logistics. We use 3PLs for our distribution. So we control the entire process from start to finish, even though we utilize third parties wherever we're able to.
Nice. So the big question is, so what is the most challenging aspect of growing and scaling the company? You started in 2019. You're clearly scaling. You may have multiple challenges. So
yeah. I mean, any business that scales as quickly as we do, I mean, cash flow. Yeah, that's the biggest single challenge. Just making sure that you funded and you've got all the moving parts. Moving on the right, sort of speed, and everything comes together. So, there are a lot of balls to juggle. Any startup, you're wearing 16 different hats. So it's just staying focused, knowing what you're doing, and trying to manage that cash flow.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious on the actual product. It looks to me, just as a layman, that it's a very crowded marketplace. You go down an aisle in Home Depot or Lowe's, is all kinds of tapes, sealants, glues. I'm curious how you got into it, and I guess what is really your differentiator, like how you grow it.
That's a very good question. I think you hit the nail on the head. You walk down that aisle in Depot and you look at corks and sealants, and not only is it busy and noisy, it's super confusing. And that was one of the key sort of things that I took away from it was how does the layman know which product to use? So we decided, we can do this. We can educate the customer, and we can make the whole process easier. Easier to understand what the product is, which product to use, where, when to use the product, and how to use the product. And that's our key differentiator is, really just making the whole process a lot simpler and easier for the customer, so that they aren't confused and it isn't as noisy. And then from a marketing point of view, the strength of the Grey Stuff brand that's been around for 40 plus years really adds a lot of value to it, and it's a well-respected brand. So we've got a good brand, and then we communicate to the consumer and make the experience a lot easier and friendlier for them.
How does because it looks like, and I went over your website, it looks like you sell mostly B2B through distributors, and sounds like e-commerce, but probably your purchaser is selling it that way. How do you get that education to the end user?
So starting simple, and we basically we have a game plan in terms of where we're going. But the first step that we did is we put QR codes on all of our products. So with the QR code, it will take you through to the actual product. There's how-to videos. The knowledge is there. If you want to get right down into the nitty-gritty and look at the technical detail, that's there as well. So that's step one. Step two, which will be phased in later this year, is there'll actually be AR technology part of that QR code. So you'll be able to just put your phone directly in front of it, and there'll be icons that are going to pop around, virtual icons, which are going to show you what that product does. And then from there, you can click through to the next step. And then later down the line, next year, we're going to introduce AI technology, and we've got a digital human that you can interact with, and you can ask questions. So instead of a chat bot or a live person, you can literally stand in the store, or you can do it online, and you can ask for help. How do I glue this to this? I need to stick this, or how long does this take to dry? And the beauty about the AI is that it actually reads facial expressions as well. So it can see if you're confused or if you're happy or those kind of things. So it's all about, sort of the consumer, and we're very much targeting Gen Z for our future, sales, for our sales generation.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing, because I don't think anyone else is doing it. It almost sounds like you could actually, you're creating a technology company, right? That
very much. I mean, we basically look at ourselves as a marketing and technology company selling adhesives.
Yeah. And you can almost sell anything if that technology is set up right? So they
exactly. I could be selling underwear.
Yeah. So where's all the visionary coming? Is that from you? Are you the visionary of the company? I mean,
I am, unfortunately, for everybody that works for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I've been very, very fortunate in my career to have started a number of businesses. I've had industrial supply. I spent a long time in the branding and marketing industry from a production point of view. Logistics, had a logistics company, and furniture manufacturer of all things. So, being involved in things where, you've got to think a little bit further down the line. You've got to understand the consumer, what their needs are, the salesperson, the demands that they are, and then the logistics behind it. So, with all of that exposure, it's really given me a bigger picture, and obviously running all of those business, understanding the financial structure of what it's need. But more importantly, I think I've learned about putting the right teams together, and that's really what's key over here. I may have put the direction and brought it all together, but it's my team that really makes it all work.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that. As I don't know if you ever read Predictable Success by Les McEwen, but they talk about so the curve of the cycle of a business from early struggle to hopefully predictable success. And he talks about bringing in team members, the right type of players at different levels, whether it's a operator or a visionary, obviously, to begin with, and a processor, the dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So it sounds like you kind of plan that out right from the start, or is that, tell me how that
I think initially when I first came in, and we were going to start the business very differently. We were going to start it from basically the smaller customers and build it up in that. And when the opportunity came for us to put our hand up for the DuPont licensee, and then we actually won the licensee, that changed the way that we approached this completely, and we turned it the other way around, and we went straight to the big box, to the depots and the Lowe's and the Menards and the Aces and that, and that's where we've got presence. So we changed strategy quickly, but at the end of the day, the vision of where I wanted to go was always the same. It was just, we had to change slightly, and I planned it out. For a long time, I knew exactly where I wanted to go, how I was going to have to get there, what the path was. I mean, obviously, there's a lot that changed. You've got to pivot quickly, but the end goals, remained the same. One of the things that we do internally is I don't know if you've ever heard of a vision, but we developed one, and basically it's written 3 years in the future, but looking back at the past. And by doing that, you write, where the company is, what the culture is, what you want to achieve, where are you selling, how are you marketing, really everything. Uh-huh. And that's helped give everybody within the company direction, so they know where we're going to, but not sort of fine tune in terms of a business plan. And the other thing it does is when we do the hires, before we even interview, we give somebody that to read. And if it doesn't resonate with them and they're not going to fit in the culture of the company, everybody saved a bit of time in that. So it's really, knowing where you want to go and what it is that you want to achieve, and then finding the tenacity to keep going.
Yeah, it's funny, when earlier in my career, I went to some kind of strategy summit. But one of the things I came out of, which I think you just said in a different way, is like you can't get there from here, but you can get there from there. So it was like, know where you need to be, and it gets you back here that you can move forward. So it's interesting, that it sounds like from the start you had that set up, and I think a lot of business owners kind of just start a business and see how it goes, and they
Yeah.
plan a year in advance, and then they throw it in a drawer somewhere and look at a year later to see how they did, or compared. Um, do you? Also sounds like we practice EOS here. It's a lot like that.
Yeah. So I mean, on the EOS system, the books Traction and Rocket Fuel
Yeah.
and that are, brilliant. From a VI, the visionary integrator. I mean, I've been one of those fortunate people who really found my integrator, and I've got a great CEO who's, got phenomenal experience, and we just work really well together. We've learned to argue incredibly well. There's a lot of mutual respect, and I think that's also just key. It's making sure that you've got that, and knowing your weakness and your strengths. We both kind of joke about the same thing, trying to be the dumbest guy in the room. And because of that, we've got some people in the right places who are really, really good. But having that VI integrator, and we literally meet every Friday morning. We meet offsite, and we spend the morning together. Basically, okay, where are we? What's going on? What do we need to address? Future stuff, current stuff, all of that kind of thing. So during the week, it's putting out fires, and it's basically making everything happen. And it's allowed us to get to a position very, very quickly where I can start stepping further and further out of being in the business and start working, on the business.
Yeah, and I actually love your website too. I talked about it earlier, but you have your purpose and your why and your core values, and you don't see that much with companies, or you see something that's thrown up there that who knows if they really believe it. What they're putting on there. It's just window dressing. But
Thank you. We've actually got a one pager that it goes up, and I mean, I've got mine up on my board over here, and it's got our values, and the values weren't me sitting on a Sunday afternoon and writing it. It was lots and lots of sessions with everybody, working on it. So it's got our core values and why they're important to us, so we know that. But it's also got our 1 year target. It's got our 3 year target. It's got our 10-year target as well, in terms of where we want to be, and what are the key sort of criteria, what's measurable. And it makes a big difference, because you know your why.
yeah, I mean, if you didn't have that, what would it be like? I mean, can you even envision, take a picture?
Sure. I think it's hard for me to imagine not having it,
Yeah.
because it just sounds chaotic. It sounds like, people will be counterproductive. They'll be working in different directions. We're very, very pro about how can we be more efficient. I run the company very, very differently. It's very much an output-driven company. And our measurables are not, the KPIs are really about achieving certain goals in that. So we've got unlimited leave. There's you're going to leave when you want to, as long as you're achieving your goal. We don't have working hours. You can work when you want. There's a huge amount of flexibility. I mean, my people are scattered not only all over the country, but internationally as well. So the way we've structured it, everybody supports each other. Everybody knows what they need to achieve. And everybody's adults here, that you've got the flexibility and the freedom to do this. But having those goals and having that direction basically allows them to know what it is that they need to do and achieve. Just be efficient. How else can you do it? And we use project management tools, and so there are thousands of emails bouncing around, and just keeping it simple.
Yeah. So if for anyone who's listening who is an entrepreneur, are there any tools that you would recommend that help you kind of move forward the way you're doing?
So I think the thing is, with the amount of technology available out there to everybody, it's hard to try keep it simple and not get overwhelmed, because there's a tool for everything.
Right.
So we have 3 key tools. The one is an ERP system, which we need, obviously, so I know you work a lot with QuickBooks. We've got NetSuite's Oracle, and that ERP system, it's the heart of our company because that controls everything, and we EDI connected to all of our customers. Then even though it's got a CRM system, it doesn't do what we want. So we run HubSpot as a CRM system, and that's not just from the customer part. It's also from social media control and management and website control, all of those kind of things. And then the last thing we run is a tool called Asana, which is a project management tool. Now, all three of these integrate with each other. So there was a lot of thought and investigation and everything that went into this. And those three are our core products. Now, from there's, each department's got a little extra thing in there. But that's really the heart of it. So my advice would be, don't just choose the first thing that comes across or, that everybody's recommended. Take the time, do your research, and make sure that you know what it is that you want to achieve, and make sure that the tool can do that, because it's going to save you a lot of time and money and effort by, investigating first before just bouncing around.
Yeah, and we see that a lot too, with there's like multiple tools for the same thing. You mentioned Asana, there's Trello, there's Monday.com, ERPs, NetSuite, obviously. We work with Acumatica, there's QuickBooks, there's Dynamics. Yeah, you're right. So I think people look at sometimes the one tool, they think it'll do everything, and it doesn't. They add more, it doesn't work, they add something else.
Yeah.
And then people aren't on board with all the tools. Some people are using Slack, some people are using WhatsApp, some people are using Teams, and just trying to define.
Yeah, we planned it out. We spent the first 2.5-3 years really just planning, putting structures in place. Understanding what it takes to bring a new product to market. What's involved in that, the different stage gates. And just really putting the procedures and the structure in place. We took a very different approach. And as the scalability, just we fortunately, as well as we're doing, we're at the bottom of the hockey curve, and it's one way from here. But we've built our foundations, prepared for this, knowing this is where we were going, which is going to make it a lot easier. Not that it's going to be easy, just to scale quickly, and then you're not putting out fires, and all you're doing is trying to resolve issues. Now it's just about, okay, how do we get more efficient? How do we grow quicker? How do we grab more market share?
So in less than 4 years, you expanded in North America, you set up your operations, supply chain, reps. I mean, what was that experience like? Because I assume you didn't have your full team that you have today, that you had,
Yeah, I think for the first 18 months I was on my own.
Okay.
And then probably like the next, I would say that 70% of our staff are less than 6 months old.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very slow going in the beginning. It was soul crushing, and it was there were days where it was just how do I get through the next email or the next phone call, never mind the next hour. Right. But again, I think that's where that end goal comes in place, and knowing where you want to go to and what you want to achieve, and it's just finding the way there. I think coming to the US and starting from scratch was incredibly challenging. Not knowing the systems, not having any resources, not knowing anybody, and literally just starting from the ground up. That was difficult. And I don't think people realize just how scalability business is here in the US until you get sort of stuck into it. But it really is. And I think the biggest mistake that people do is everyone wants to work in their business instead of on it. And I recognize, for me to be able to scale this thing and to grow it, I need to bring people that can actually work the business while I grow it. And that was probably one of the big key factors.
Yeah. I'm curious, who was your first hire after your first 18 months or so? What was that person?
So I had a fractional CFO in the beginning for a while.
Okay.
Making sure that finance is not the part that I enjoy,
right.
But it's also crucial in terms of a startup. So, utilizing that. Then I started bringing on some manufacturer reps who had relationships with some of the bigger customers, because one of the things I learned is the customers that I deal with take anything from sort of like 18 to 36 months to get into. So even though we weren't ready, we were starting to knock on the doors and making people aware of us, and that we come in and that we'll be here, and just keep those going through. And then the next hire was David, my COO, who came in and, from the ground, and the two of us have really built this. And, he's been a rock.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because you just mentioned manufacturers reps, because those are the people who know the customers coming in just cold. I was wondering how you got these relationships going and kind of able to grow, but it sounds like you relied heavily on these reps who already had experience.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's with anything, any business in that, regardless of what it is, it's find a specialist, and whether that's somebody that you can outsource or somebody that you can bring internal. And, we've got some phenomenal people that have joined us now who've got really strong relationships in the marketplace already, so that just keeps bolstering and boosting us. And, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and figure out how to do things, they've taken lessons that they've learned previously and brought it in and brought all the good stuff and also what not to do, so that just keeps improving. And it's, just keep asking. And I'm the first to put my hand up and say, I don't know how to do this, let's get somebody else to, ask the questions.
Right. As a leader, are there certain metrics or certain, like a scorecard or things that you monitor on a regular basis, weekly?
Yeah. So I mean, besides the standard bottom line, information, from an accounting point of view, my biggest thing is, and this is not something that there's a KPI or anything, it's just the happiness of my people. So we'll have, actually yesterday we have changed now from a monthly to a quarterly a company meeting where we bring everyone together. We share certain KPIs in terms of where the company is and where it was, and where we want to go over the next quarter. So that way everybody's on the same page. And more importantly for me is not about just having that meeting. It's after the meeting where I jump onto another one with the COO and say, all right, how did that go? What was your take? Because while I'm talking, he's watching everybody, and while he's talking, I'm watching everybody, and it was, do we need to follow up with so-and-so? They seem concerned about something, or, hey, so-and-so was like super excited about that. So we very much, take care of our people. That's the most important thing for me, because if I take care of them, they'll take care of the business. So besides your regular business KPIs in terms of, hitting the metrics that you set, that's probably the key thing for me.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, talk, with this whole culture that everybody wants to try to get into their business. How does that working with you? Because sounds like everyone's remote, right? Because you're working from home.
Yeah.
With your adhesives in the background and sealants.
Yeah.
Must be fun at holiday parties.
So yeah, I'm sure. No, we haven't had any of those.
But so yeah, how do you instill that? I know you just.
I think one of the big problems is people try to instill culture. You don't instill it. Culture is created and developed by leadership, like you said. There were a couple of things that I set up when I started the business, and this was pre-COVID. One of the things I said, is I want to be completely remote. I want to be able to work from anywhere in the world. And I set it up like that from day one. So for us, COVID was just reinforced everything that we wanted to do anyway. We also, and again, if you have a look at the vivid vision, we've stipulated what we want, from a company. And when people read that and it resonates with them, we know that's our people. And if it doesn't resonate with them, that's what it is. And it's their interactions that have grown and started with the company. And what's been really awesome for us is myself and David knew exactly the type of company we wanted to build, and what we wanted to do for our people, how we wanted to structure it. So we, that's just how we treated everybody. And as the company grew and more people came on board, and we treated them like that, and then they brought on new people and they treated them like that. It's just it's a follow-on. So it's how you treat your people at the end of the day. And if you see something, we've had one or two really good people in terms of what they do, and not bad people in terms of who they are. But there's been a couple of things that, morally or ethically or whatever it is that you want to say, that I haven't agreed with, and I've let them go. It doesn't matter how good you are at your job if you don't fit into the culture of the company. That's a sure way to tolerate nonsense. It's just going to send the message to everybody else that you don't care about them. So I think it's really the crux is, what example does the leadership set?
Yeah, it's funny. We have our core values that we set up as well, and it took us some time to do that. We looked at our best employees because we did it after the fact. What's great, you guys did it right from the start. We were already in business for a number of years as an accounting firm and then came up with the core values. But we did it by looking at our best employees and what did we value in them to come up with really to set the tone for the rest of our values. We have like 5 core values, but every
Yeah.
quarter we meet and actually, I know I hate to use the word rate, but we look at our team and figure where how do they fall in our core values? Are they a plus? Are they a minus? Plus minus? And we try to work on the ones that are not performing to make them, you know,
Yeah.
get
Listen, I think it's important, and I think obviously for an established company, it's different. You know, I've restructured a couple of companies, and you know, I've had some experiences where I've gone in and morale was low, and people were demotivated, and you know, all the owner of the company was concerned about was the bottom line and losing sales and losing customers, and then I'm like, you got to fix the problem, you know, and the problem is not your sales or
right.
anything. The problem is your people, you know, and once you work on that, it's easy to turn around. So you know that's my single biggest focus.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to like, how do we increase revenues? How do we, grow the top line? But you're right. They don't realize that it could be a
Yeah,
bigger problem in your resources, your people. Yeah. Your biggest asset.
100%. Doesn't mean I don't expect a lot from them.
No, that's, yeah, you have to set the bar high. So that's what I was always told.
Yeah,
And if they hit 90%, they're doing an awesome job, right? So, what
yeah.
I'm just from a management team perspective, like, what's it look like when you have to solve problems, or it maybe give me an example of a recent challenge that you guys had to kind of like figure out.
Um, you know, I think one of the things that we do is our staff understand that we're there to support them. They're there to, you know, obviously to achieve the job or the role in that. And you know, first they've got to try and resolve the problem, and you know, second will come to us with the problem, say, this is what's happened, this is what I think we should do. You know, and work on it like that. You know, we've had some logistical issues as everybody else, you know, in the world at the moment. You know, and a lot of the time, the logistical issues, the feedback is coming to me in terms of what the issue is and how it was resolved and you know what was done. So you know, again, from the very beginning is understanding. Even things go wrong, they do. I mean, you know, it. I think I'm a pretty patient guy. Well, I'm impatient and want to get things done, but I'm pretty reasonable. And if there's a problem, we deal with the problem immediately. You know, it doesn't matter how it happened or whose fault it was. That's irrelevant in that moment. In the moment, it's, you know, let's deal with the problem. Let's get it done. Let's get it fixed, and you know, let's move forward. Then let's go back and reevaluate and say, okay, why did that go wrong, and how can we make sure that either we improve the systems or whatever, and fix it. So level heads. You know, I think that's pretty important, and taking emotion out of it, and just, you know, dealing with the, you know, the actual issues. And you know, I think not only the staff but the rest of the management team realize, like with me, you know, they can come to me with whatever, you know, even if they don't know how to resolve something, we can talk it through and we will find a solution. You know, I think I've been fortunate to, you know, I've had some businesses that I've messed up spectacularly, and you know, some good lessons have come out of that. So you know, often there's a good lesson that I can turn to back from my past.
Yeah. Is it a challenge for you? You're a visionary, so clearly, is there a challenge for you to stay out of some of the detail, or do you,
It, until I've seen some traction or some evidence that the person can, you know, do it. I think earlier in my career, I learned a lesson that was, just because somebody does something different, but they achieve the same result, doesn't mean that the way they're doing it is wrong. And that was a difficult lesson to learn. But you know, I also realized that if somebody can do something at 80% of the capacity or 70% of the capacity that I would do it, you know, if I got 10 of those people, I'm doing 700% compared to if I'm trying to do it all on my own.
Mhm.
You know, so you know, it's also, you know, realizing, you know, delegating is important. And I think what has helped is surrounding myself with really strong people. You know, and once that trust factor is there, is just, you know, handing it over and stepping back and knowing that if they're stuck, they'll come to me. And you know, you got to build that.
Yeah, and it takes time. Yeah.
It
So,
does.
and we,
Yeah.
I know with me, we failed a couple of times, or more than a couple, but it's a process.
Yeah, it is. And I encourage my people to make decisions, and fail, so it's, unless I see that it's going to really affect us in a negative way, I'll let them fail. I mean, I know it's going to, we're going to have to fix this, but let it go and let it go. And, let them learn. And people also know that, they can come to me and say, I'm stuck with this, and I'm not sure. I'll just try to prompt them to ask themselves the right questions. Well, what about this? Or what, I try not to give the answers, even if I know them. And that way it just makes them stronger in terms of their roles and everything. But failure is awesome. Failure is the big lessons.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's hard sometimes. I'm an accountant, so I'm come to like, oh, how do we book this? And it's so easy to say, oh, just do it this way. But, even myself, I'm starting to go, well, what do you think? Or, what would it look like? And so
Yeah.
it's hard sometimes when you're a technician like myself, to not give answers when they ask. But a visionary,
It's something you've got to learn.
yeah,
It's something you've got to learn, especially when you're like, you know what, I might as well just do this. I'll get it done quicker. I had an example this, on Friday, I was swamped with stuff I needed to get done. And I was like, Dean, why are you working on this? There's other people that can do it. And I farmed it out, to 5 other people for different aspects of it. And, by Monday, I got everything except from one of the guys who said he would get it to me on Saturday. And Monday, I didn't get it. Tuesday, I didn't get it. And, there's a part of me that's cursing myself. It's like, you know what, if you just did it on the weekend, it would be done by now. But it's like,
right.
this person got to learn, they got to learn how to do it.
So I know you've done some long-term planning. Do you already have like an exit strategy? Have you already thought that further down the road, or are you in a?
So we know what we want to achieve. We know we do have a plan in place, but it's actually it's going to be a toss-up between sort of 2 options. So there is a full exit, or there is potential of IPO. And quite honestly, it's really going to determine about, in sort of 5 to 7 years time from now, and how much energy I've got.
You're a young guy. Looks like you have plenty of energy.
Yeah, listen, I like you said, being a visionary in that, I also get bored pretty easy. And, I know that there's a lot of growth in this business, both, nationally and internationally. But after 5 to 7 years of growing, and that, it could get to a time where I don't have it in me anymore, and I'm realistic about that. So that's why there is a plan B, just in case.
Well, how, it's difficult. I ask myself the same question because I always see all these great ideas and want to like pursue every one of them. How do you stop yourself from doing that, just in general? I mean, obviously.
Oh, that's a good question. I've got a nice little kitty of ideas that I could take. And we spoke briefly about 2 other companies that I've co-founded, and it's ideas that have been sitting around for a long time, and they're very much sort of on pause right now while I focus. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think it goes back to basically, we have an internal thing called candy cotton. And, so if somebody comes up with an idea, it's either our core business, which is adhesives and corks, or it's candy cotton, and we don't sell candy cotton. That gets blown around in the wind. So when somebody, we bring the ideas, bring the concepts, customers ask for stuff in that, and, we look into it, we have a value proposition that we go through. Does it make sense? Does it even cut the list to get onto there? So it's very much about being very focused. And again, that's where those clear goals and direction come in place, knowing what you want to achieve, and that helps get around the noise. It's like, so it's either candy cotton, or it's what we do, and that definitely helps. I mean, I see opportunities slipping through our fingers on a continuous basis, but it's opportunities that I know that will deviate from where we want to get, and there are times where you've got to take it into consideration, and it makes sense, but just stay focused. And I think it takes a little bit of discipline.
Yeah. Well, what about personally? Like, so you probably, because you are a visionary, forgetting National Adhesive for a minute, but do you see other opportunities in just other businesses and ideas and things like that?
All the time. I think the thing that frustrates me is, I'll be sitting talking to somebody who's struggling with the business, and I'm like, I can fix this. I can take what you've got here, and I can like quadruple it, and it's just like, don't say anything, Dean, shut your mouth. Right. Or I'll see a concept, I'm like, oh, that's such a brilliant concept, I know I can make this work. Or You know what? I know where there's an opportunity for that. So yeah, but but I think what helps is that I know my end goal is once I've exited this business in a couple of years' time, that's exactly what I want to do. Is I want to help, other entrepreneurs, get going and who are struggling or don't know what the next step is, or are stuck or whatever the case is. I want to go in, okay, help them get to the next step and then move on to the next one, move on to the next one. So I've kind of like train my brain to put all of that other stuff on pause, for the next 10 years. And when that happens, then I can go nuts.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have the same problem. I hear we have hundreds of clients and they'll mention a problem or something and I'm like, oh, I could figure that out or hire somebody to do that, or it's software or an app to do something, and it's difficult to like restrain myself. We're we're a QuickBooks shop, and now we're doing ERP, right? Because I'm like, oh, opportunity for large clients. Let me go into the ERP world, but you got to wonder sometimes. Do you kind of like hit time out? What's your core business, like you mentioned, and that the rest is candy cotton, I think you called it, or
yeah, just some frivolous stuff that'll blow away in the wind.
right. The other question I have is really as you're growing, because you're a visionary, I'm focused on that for a second. Do you have supposedly we have natural conflict with processors who want to, put a bow around everything and make sure everything is signed and there's a process and a procedure and
absolutely, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
It drives me absolutely nuts. It's just like, just do it,
Yeah.
But having, as I said, spectacularly failed before, I understand the importance of it. It's a necessary evil. I don't need to do it. I don't, I can bring people in who enjoy it. I mean, we've got some people in our organization who just, love working with data or policy or whatever. And it's just like, I mean, that doesn't do it for me at all. But I understand the importance of it. I'm pretty sure sometimes I jump a little bit ahead of the curve and people have to catch up and it frustrates them. But, that's part of what's got us here. So I try to find a balance of being respectful for what they do and also just pushing a little bit further than probably they would, and sometimes just making the decision. I think that's one thing I don't have a problem with is procrastination and can kill a business, and being indecisive. And at the end of the day, if I make a decision and it's the wrong one, okay, well, it's the wrong one, let's change it and make the right one. So yes, those kind of things frustrate me.
Yeah. Well, with our own process procedures, sometimes I'm the last one to follow them. I know we need them and they have to be in place, but yeah. So
talking about all these systems, the ERP and the project management tool and CRM and all of that kind of stuff. I was the one who was insistent. We've got to have these systems in place. We've got to put them in place. I did not use them.
Right. Yeah, I don't use some of the ones we have here either. So. But I want everyone else to use them, and
exactly, 100%. It's like I just want the results. Give me the results. I know this is the tool that you need to get the results. All I want is the results. How you get there, that's
exactly. So cool. Just curious, what if somebody was starting a business, buying a business, or an entrepreneur, early stage, what kind of advice or different advice would you give somebody?
I think anybody who's starting a business, rule of thumb that I've learned long ago and sort of use. If you're going into business or you've started a business, everything's going to cost you 3 times the amount that you think it's going to cost you. Your sales are going to be at least half the amount that you think it's going to, and it's going to take 10 times the amount of effort that you think it's going to. And if you take that formula and you sort of put it down and you say, okay, well, it still makes sense after those numbers. Then go for it. But and I think businesses fail in terms of, if you look at the stats, businesses really fail from lack of funding. But I also think that lack of funding often is also just a lack of creativity. There are ways to make it happen. There are ways. You got to dig deep. You got to have the tenacity. And you got to know what you want to achieve. I think those are the kind of things that I would definitely give some thought to.
Yeah, and like you said, tenacity and know what you want to achieve. You have to from everything I've heard, you have to believe it first before you can achieve it, right? You have to
100%.
get it.
And you are going to sacrifice, especially
Yeah.
you're going to sacrifice time with family, time with friends, relationships, income, out sleep, all those kind of fun things. So just I think in this day and age, entrepreneurship has been glorified, and it's this, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and that until you are one, and then I was in a seminar the other day, and one of the guys, everyone said, "Why are you here today?" And he basically sat down and he said, "I'm here to understand why we all do this to ourselves."
It can be difficult, or actually most of the time it is, I think, but
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, right. Yes. So just flipping the conversation, just tell me about yourself, where you're from, and how you got here, basically.
Sure. So, I'm originally from Swaziland, now known as the Kingdom of Eswatini, which is a tiny little landlocked country squashed between South Africa and Mozambique, about 1.1 million people in the country. It's 46% highest HIV rate in the world.
Oh, wow.
About 60% unemployment. So, not a lot of natural resources. So kind of a little forgotten thing, still run by a king, last remaining monarchy in the world with absolute power. Beautiful place, absolutely stunning. My parents and my sister and her family are still there. So that's where I originally come from. So obviously love the outdoors and nature, camping, and all of that kind of thing. Yeah. And I met a girl, and exactly, the rest is kind of history. And it was a decision, if I wanted to carry on, I had to come over, and here I am. So did a couple of trips, looking for opportunities, whether to buy something or start something, and that part of it is history. Just in general, love the outdoors. Last summer we did an 8,500 mile road trip with our camper, and we went all the way from Theodore Roosevelt National Park, Glacier, Grand Teton, all those beautiful places, right down to Big Bend, and just really amazing places here in the US. And I enjoy living.
Did you make it to Boston or New Hampshire or Maine or Acadia or anything?
So we haven't got up that way yet, not yet. That's on the cards next. So we're still getting. Yeah, so we go to Texas pretty often. So Jenny's from Texas, so we get down there pretty often. We'll go down in the summer again, but time.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I see that you're a big coffee drinker. I think I read that somewhere.
I am. Roast my own beans. So no, coffee's my staple diet.
Nice. And outside of work, what kind of you in any organizations? Like what kind of help?
I belong to I belong to the Virginia CEO Council, and then I'm a member of YPO as well. So I belong to those two organizations, and that's all for the time being. That keeps me busy.
No, this has been awesome. I mean, it sounds like it's great to hear you set this right from the start. You knew exactly where you wanted to go, brought your team in, get everybody on the same page. I like the fact you meet weekly, Fridays. It's kind of like we try to do that with the EOS implementer we use, and it's helped us just knowing, like you mentioned, knowing where you want to be, having that map.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So someone said, without a direction, it's like, a boat, without a rudder, just kind of.
Exactly. It's there's an old saying about the ship with no port destination, or the wind favors the ship with no destination.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. I enjoyed our conversation. I'd love to maybe check back in a year or something like that. You'll probably have been exited and you're out camping somewhere, but
we'll see. No, I still got a couple of years before I exit. I've got some things I want to achieve.
Good. Awesome. Well, I know people could find you. Well, your company website, it's nationaladhesive.com.
Correct.
And you're on LinkedIn, Dean Vincel, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And anything else? Instagram?
No, listen, everything else is that's where my focus is. LinkedIn is where I spend most of my time. So that's probably the best place to get hold of me there. And I'm pretty active there and pretty responsive.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. I want to thank the listener, whoever's listening or watching this. If you like it, I encourage you to share. Hopefully you learned something. I did. It was great kind of hearing, Dean, how you've set this up. I've talked to, a bunch of other companies. They're doing well, they're growing, but they didn't have that initial goal, what it would look like, where they wanted to be. They're doing it, but I think you're way ahead of where they are or they would be.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It definitely has helped us. And it's been awesome chatting to you, Jeff. So thank you very much for your time.
And thank you. And this has been another episode of Leaders Who Scale. And that wraps up another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at leaderswhoscale.com. Leaders Who Scale is sponsored by Siegel Solutions, providing world-class services and cutting-edge tools that help businesses grow and succeed.